Stephen, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Helen, for hosting this nth webinar from ALL London on behalf of ALL around the country and all of its language teachers at different points in their careers. It's great to see so many young faces amongst those cameras. I'm used to seeing rather older faces a lot of the time, and it's great to know there are many young teachers of languages coming along who are interested in talking to each other, meeting up in this sort of context. This is what ALL is about. It's about bringing together language teachers to talk about things, ask each other questions, support each other, and also reassure each other that the things that we are doing make sense to other people as well. That's a very important social aspect of being a language teacher, meeting other language teachers. You need that sort of personal background that you don't get from teachers of other subjects who don't really understand what we do. So our event this evening is going to be mostly presented by Veronica, who you can see in the image as well. Veronica's up here in the northeast of England, not very far away from me, in the very nasty grey and rainy day today, but she's got a nice smile, so that she's going to be very cheerful and upbeat about what she's going to be talking about, which is called making a good start. So it's about her reflections on how to get yourselves ready to start your new term and what sort of things you might want to have in your bag of resources when you actually get in front of a class, whenever that might be. ALL, as you know, is a charity. It's a membership organization. The only funds we get are from our membership membership fees and from occasional events that we hold as well, or publications. All of those things are advertised on the website. And if you are already a member, you might like to write, "I'm a member," in the chat box now, so we can see how many people already know about ALL. If you don't know about ALL, then you can, of course, join. And there is going to be, in a moment, a special offer for you to join for the year. There is a special page on our website for NQTs. You can see an image of it that Helen's just put up there. And I'm going to be showing you a link to that in just a moment. And on that one, you will find this document, which I've just created especially for you. And this is some bits and pieces that I've spotted around not only the ALL website, but other resources that ALL hosts, things that I thought were particularly relevant to NQTs. So I'm going to do another one of these for people who are no longer NQTs, obviously, but this is for you as your career begins, the sort of things I thought you might be interested in. You might, of course, well be interested in many different things because all of us are different from each other. So you might want to look at the other ones, but they're not there yet. You are first in line for this special treat. So you're getting this one before any other teachers. So don't look for it now because you won't find it anywhere else. The last bit on the right-hand column there was just saying, if you've got something you would like to do, something you would like to contribute in the form of an article or a comment or even a few questions or something like that, then do send them in, because we like to share between us what other people are thinking about and what they're concerned about. So do send something in. And if you also have an idea of a service that you think someone in ALL, remembering that everyone in ALL is a volunteer, but a service that you think someone might be able to offer that you think would be useful to NQTs in particular, drop us a line about that too. Here is your special offer coming up on the next screen. So if you're not a member at the moment, if you were to join on the joining page of the website and put in webinar 10 at the end of the checkout, then you'll get 10% discount on the usual already discounted fee for NQTs and for trainee teachers. Thank you. So there's lots of events coming up. You can always find out about the webinars from the ALL London website, and you can find out from the other events, obviously, from the ALL main website. And if you're a member, you'll receive all net a weekly email update on everything that's going on as well. So there's where our etiquette again that Helen's read to you once again. That's just a reminder. We're going to be nice to each other. We're going to be complimentary to each other. It's all about trying to boost confidence before the start of term. And that's basically what that page is about. Have I got anything else I needed to say? Now I'm going to put into the chat now the link to where the NQT page is, so that you can come back to it later on. And I'll mention it again later on anyway, and if I don't, someone will remind me. I'm sure that I said I would do it. So that is the web page where you'll find the NQT document I've just shown you, and lots of other things. You'll find articles in there, you'll find blogs, and you'll find reports and different things. So that's about it from me. And now I'm going to pass over to Veronica, who is just back from Cádiz in Spain, where she has been warm. And she's now, as I said, in the northeast of England, which is why she's wearing a jumper. So I'm sure you'll have two jumpers. I'm sure you'll have a lovely time. And if you've got a question at any time, if you put it into the chat, then I will pick up on it. And then when Veronica comes to one of her breaks, I'll try and ask some of the questions then, or try and summarize them at the end of the session. Thank you very much. And over to Veronica. Oh, you're muted, Veronica, at the moment.
There we go. Good evening to everyone. I wanted to start by thanking Helen and Stephen for organizing this event for us, to our guest speakers from the All Initial Teacher Education and Training community, and to all of you for attending. I'm now going to share the presentation. And just please write on the chat if you can see it.
Yes, it's there.
Yep. Lovely. Great. So this presentation is called Making a Good Start, Top Tips for Your First Week as an NQT. This personal guide is especially intended to support and reassure NQTs who are about to start their professional career. But we would like to welcome all MFL teachers and encourage all of you to contribute by sharing your views and opinions. My name is Verónica González Otero, and I am an English and languages teacher, as Stephen said, originally from Cádiz in the southwest of Spain. I have experience teaching in the USA, in Spain, and in the UK, and in various educational settings, ranging from primary and secondary schools, language schools, vocational training, college, and at university. I'm currently working in Newcastle, and I teach Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4, and Key Stage 5. And here is my email address, vgonzalez with a Z, otero@hotmail.com, in case you would like to contact me at any time in the future. I've seen on the chat that some of you are starting your year on the first week of September. I'm not starting until the 7th, so I don't know if that would be some sort of induction. But if you feel that you want to have more of an informal chat via Zoom, just email me as well, and I'll be happy to help you at any time. This presentation will be available afterwards, so feel free to relax and enjoy it. I've divided the presentation into 4 sections. Before teaching starts, your first lessons, your second lesson with each class, and a beginner's recipe for behavior management. So the first section would be half of my presentation, so it's the longer one, and then sections 2, 3, and 4 would be the second part of the presentation. So I thought we made a start by asking you, what are you most looking forward to this September? So could you please write your thoughts on the chat? So we've got meeting the students, color pens, definitely. We'll talk about stationery in a minute. Meeting the classes, welcoming new students, having my own classes, definitely. being back in school and teaching in person. We're all waiting for that. It's been really interesting experience during lockdown, but I have to say I did enjoy it a lot as well. I don't know if I've missed anything. Doing a couple of relaxing activities. If I'm missing anything, please let me know.
There was one about not being observed all the time, Veronica.
Well, I wouldn't be so sure. No, I'm joking. Definitely, it's gonna feel honestly really nice compared to your teacher training experience. It's gonna be lovely. Okay, so I'll make a start now with section 1. There you go. So the first section is before teaching starts. As I said, it's a longer one, so that would be half of the presentation, but I hope you enjoy it. The headline is Be Professional, follow the code of conduct for teaching professionals in the UK and decide what sort of teacher you want to be. I remember when I did my teacher training in Spain, one of our mentors, he said that he didn't laugh until December. And I tried my best during my first year, but I soon noticed that I just couldn't do that because I'm a very lively person. I'm very enthusiastic, and it's all about building the relationship with students for me. And I don't think that not laughing is a sign of, managing behavior better. There are other ways that you can manage behavior and, without not having to smile. But it worked for my best friend is a maths teacher in Spain, and it works for her really well. So the main thing is that just choose what sort of teacher you want to be, and as long as you're being professional, that's fine. So if you like to share, I don't know, that with your students that you've got a pet or you've got a dog and you want to tell them about it, that's fine. There is nothing wrong, as long as I said is within safeguarding and being professional. So that's a key thing. And also extremely important is don't worry because as an NQT, because teachers support each other at all times. So within your school, I know the school feels like a very fast-paced environment because it is, but if you need help, do not think that your mentors, heads of faculty, they're gonna think, oh my God, what did they do during teacher training? Because that's not the case. We all have doubts. This is like my 3rd year in the school I'm currently at, and I still ask questions because you need to stay humble, and if you don't know something, it's always better to ask because we're there for each other. We also have the Olani community, and I'm pretty sure that anybody would be willing to help you and support you. And myself, as I said, if you during the year you feel that you're not sure about something, you can always suggest to maybe Helen or Stephen, maybe a CPD or something you would like to work on. Just feel free to tell people if you don't know something, because there is no shame on that, honestly. And very important as well as a relief is that NQTs are not responsible for everything. So you will have a mentor, or you will have your heads of faculty to talk to. So feel relaxed, and if you don't know anything, again, link to that, just ask. So the first step of this guide is to familiarize yourself with the new school day and calendar. So I think it's very important to start writing or having a look at, okay, so in my school, I've got 5 periods to teach, or 6 periods, the timings, and when you've got your parents' evening, your CPT days or teacher training days. And also, if you like, in my case, being Spanish, I like to book my holidays like as term start. So if you are thinking about holidays, that's a very good time. I don't know about the pandemic, how things will work, but if you need to check with your, about starting dates or anything, sometimes in the calendar you may not see that, you may see it as like a holiday, but it's actually a staff training day. So make sure that you don't miss on that. And also October half-term holidays. I've known colleagues in the past who have booked their holidays with their friends or partners, but bear in mind that depending on which school, October half-terms holidays change a little bit. So bear that in mind, that's very important. Second thing is to read and highlight relevant policies from the Department of Education, as well as your school or faculty or department policies. They may vary from the school you did your teacher training, or some of them I've got in here a PDF document, so you can just click on the link. It's to consult an induction for newly qualified teachers, and I find it really, really useful. And then, very exciting for some of us who love stationery is get yourself organized. You've got time to order your stuff in Amazon or anywhere. You get your, if in my case, I cannot leave home because I meant to stay here for 2 weeks during quarantine. So I'm gonna order everything online, but I've got loads of things already. So get yourself organized in terms of stationery and equipment. Locate your teaching rooms, nearest toilets and emergency escape, etc. The teaching rooms are really important because during lockdown, during the new normality, it could be that, as in my school, I used to have my classroom, but now the students would have a base, and then the teachers are the ones moving around. So it's very important to know where the rooms are, because sometimes it may not be that straightforward. And then something really exciting as well is decorating your classroom, if you have one and if you are allowed. And if you don't have one or you're not allowed, don't worry, because at some point in the future you will. During my first 4 years of teaching, I didn't have a classroom. I would just carry literally my hand luggage for like traveling, like a trolley. And then I would just put everything inside and just move around as if I'm, on the airport. But if you do have a classroom, just don't pack it too much, because otherwise the students are gonna get distracted. But something to bear in mind, next to the whiteboard, for example, just have key expressions that you use on a daily basis, such as in Spanish, buenos dias, good morning, or something I say all the time is un momentito, just a minute, because my students start like, miss, so I always like, oh, momentito. So they know, and they go, oh, what's a momentito? So I point at the wall and they know. And then I've got, as you can see on the left picture, I've got like a shelf, and I have each class on each line. So I keep the books, and then I use, for the plain sheet, the boxes, the empty boxes, I put there flashcards or anything. I love recycling, so I tend to use, as you'll see, boxes and everything all the time. And if you've got cabinets, a good idea would be to add key words, or for example, I've got on one of the cabinets, as you can see on the picture, I've got time frequency phrases, and on the other one, I've got connectives. But I don't have too much more vocab, because then it's quite complicated for me during, in exams to be taking them down all the time. So yeah, that would be basically how I've decorated my classroom. Linked to that is making sure that the classroom materials are accessible. So on my desk, I've got my big desk, and then on the right-hand side, I've got a small table where I keep all of the glue sticks, spare pens, dictionaries, who got destroyed on the first year, unfortunately, because my students, when you have a cover teacher, sometimes they get very enthusiastic about the dictionaries. So when I came back after doing my mock exams with year 10, I found the dictionaries in a very disgraceful state, but never mind. And then plain paper as well. Plain paper. The main reason for these is that, imagine one student forgets the book at home. They don't need to interrupt you of, oh, miss, I don't have the equipment, or I don't have my book. So they know automatically that as soon as they come in, they've got the routine, write the date and title, start the starter on the board. And if you don't have your book, just get up and get a piece of paper. Then work out which system of organization works best for you. And a very important thing to bear in mind is that what works for other people may not work for you. So, for example, it might be a teacher planner, a notebook, digital files, or a combination of different elements. So I'm going to explain to you my organizational system. I like writing everything down, because I'm quite forgetful, and after a long day where you've got 6 periods, and then you've got duty, and you only have 15 minutes for lunch, and then you've got a student knocking on your door because they need something, then I forget things. So the key thing to your NQT year is be professional and be organized. Those are two take-home messages. So what I do is I use my teacher planner for normal lesson planning and homework, and then, you know, any extra periods that you may run or extra meetings. Then I've got my A5 planner, and this is the one I've created this year. I'll show you in a minute. The A5, I use that size, and when you open it, it's got from Monday to Sunday on as you open it, and I'll explain that in a minute. That's the one I carry home all the time, so I carry that with me. And finally, I've got, as you can see, that's a planning menu for food. I love cooking, I love my lists, and I do lists for absolutely everything, even to clean my house. I do a checklist. So the reason why I use these is, as you can see, if you've ever seen one of those, you've got Monday till Sunday, and then you've got morning, afternoon. Well, I just, you know, rewrite everything. So I just have, on the first line, I've got, that's my Monday, and I've got 7 slots to fill in. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then new page, Friday and weekend, and what's, you know, coming on Monday. So when I am on a normal day, I would have that on my desk in front of myself. And then as I'm teaching, imagine, you know, between, you know, during break, for example, you get an email and you need to, you know, send an email to whomever. Then I will write that down on the menu list. So imagine you need to mark a piece of homework for the next day. Then I will write it down on there. The way, the main reason I do that is because I started with lists, but then I start crossing out, and then it just gets too messy for me. So I think that is very visual. It gives you that sense of accomplishment. It gives you that, you know, you can prioritize. So even if you put, I start obviously from left to right. So if I know that, you know, marking a piece of homework is going to be the last thing I do, I put it at the end. But then, you know, with a pen, you can just number and give priority to the tasks. So that is extremely useful. It could be as well that you just like to use a notebook and just write down the things. So that's fine. That's completely up to you. So I'm going to introduce you to the idea of creating your own planner, which I've done during lockdown. And I got these from W.H. Smith at Christmas. So it's a bullet planner kit. And when you open it, it's like a blank notebook with page numbers at the bottom, as you can see. So the main reason why I did that is, so if you don't like stationery, if you don't like, you know, and you're happy with just using, I found on my first 3 years, I used just the Newcastle University planner because that's what I was used to during my master's degree and my year abroad. And it just worked really well. So whatever it is that you use, if you use one of these planners that has already been created, just customize it to your own taste and your school's requirements. So this planner, so now you can either have a look at the video or just keep following the presentation. It's entirely up to you. So as I said, the planner comes blank. So as you open it, what I've done is I've created, like I had my previous planner was from a company called Mr. Wonderful. It's a Spanish company, and they have absolutely amazing stationery, absolutely brilliant. So because of the lockdown, what I've done is I've just cut and pasted some of the stuff in there. So I've divided the planner into 3 sections. So at the beginning, I've got my email and some post-it notes. I find them useful because, for example, now that we're moving from different classrooms in my school, I may need to just, you know, write a quick note. So instead of just carrying post-it notes, I just stick it on my planner. And then if a student asks you for, you know, they always forget, for example, we use carboodle.com to access the book remotely, and they always forget about the institution code. So I always have to write it for them. So I just write a post-it note, you just stare it and just give it to the student. So that is really, really handy. Then I've got information such as my timetable, which I will stick in here, the important emails for heads of year, who's the head of year for each, or who's in charge of anything. So if you need, I don't know, any spare, I don't know, notebooks, who would you ask for that, or safeguarding lead in your school. So I would include a copy of that in here. And then I've got 3 sections. I've got the actual planner. some extras, which I'll show you in a minute, and some stickers. So as you can see in the photo, it's very straightforward. I like to have my, as you open it, sorry, I just want to have something blank. So as you open it, I like to have the whole week at a glance. I used to have a planner that had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on one side. And one time I forgot that on a Thursday I had a parents' evening. So I did my planning, I arranged my boyfriend to pick me up, and then I realized, oh my God, I've got parents' evening tomorrow. And I didn't actually realize on the Thursday morning when I had that. Obviously I had it planned and prepared, but you know, you never know when you've got tiny CPDs or anything. So my advice is, if you keep a tiny A5 notebook, you know, just put it in there. If you don't, or just sometimes what I do is just put an alarm on my phone, and it is useful. And so for the extras, as I said, you can just write in there. You will have lots of login details for different things. So just write, you know, the first 3 words if you want to, of your password or of your username if you don't remember. Some sticky notes. Then you've got the stickers in there. And at the end, something I found, okay, I have to admit, I started being quite, just 1 or 2 post-it notes, but then I just went a little bit over the top with all of them. Sorry, because my students know that I love stationery, and for Christmas or at the end of the year, they always get me some stationery. I just love it so much. So I just thought, it reminds me of different students. So I just thought I would put it over here, and I'm pretty sure I will need them. But something really useful is this thing. Like, I got some glue dots, and then I took like a transparent pocket thingy which got a Velcro, and in here I just put important things. I use this planner as my personal, if I've got a GP appointment, I will write it in here as well, because as I said, this is what I carry with me every day, because it's pretty light. Not now that I've got all of the post-it notes, but it will be light at some point. So if you want to keep something, that is a bit more confidential, or anything that you don't want to fold, just put it in there. Some glue dots will do. And finally, what I've done is I've taken a cutter and I've made 2 tiny cuts at the back. And then with the post-it notes, I've, with the glue dots, I've stuck the endings, and then I've put the post-it notes on top, stuck so that it's more firm. So the good thing is that you can just close your planner with an elastic band. I just use an elastic band and then put some second, because I love shiny things and all like these cute things. So even if it looks, as I said, just use whatever works for you. This works for me because it has helped me keep myself motivated during lockdown. It's been really, really challenging times. It's been hard for everyone. I have enjoyed so much teaching from home and not having the pressure of, being Spanish. In Spain, we just teach in, we can wear jeans. So for me, not having to wear like a suit or, the formal shoes has been really nice, I have to admit. But equally, it's worn me down a little bit, it's made me a little bit down. So creating these during my spare time, I know it's gonna help me get through the first term, which is usually, a little bit, it feels like the longest, but it's also extremely exciting. So as I said, this is something I used to have in the past. If you want to use lined paper or just a piece of paper, that would be great. Take home message. I think the week view is very illustrative. So you got on your, on one page what you want to, or you have to do on that week. And then if I've got something else to do and I don't want to carry my food planning thingy, I just take a picture on my phone and then I just take it home. So whatever it is that works for you, that's fine. And if it, it's a question of learning. I've developed this system after 6 years and it works for me really well, but some people may find it quite messy. My best friend, who's a maths teacher, as I said, in Spain, she just has an iPad and she's got everything electronically. So it's entirely up to you. And I think Stephen has got a suggestion for this section.
Yes, indeed. So there was a question in there for anyone who didn't see it. There was a question from Lisa or Lisa, I'm not quite sure how she says her name, about using an Excel spreadsheet for her planner, which she does as well, which she very generously says she's willing to share with people. So do have a look back through the chat if you missed that from her. And as Veronica says, it really it's a very personal thing how you keep your documents and your planning. So don't just accept something that comes as a published teacher's planner and think, I've got to fit in all of this, because you might not want it all. There might be things you want that are not in there. My suggestion is that whatever system you use, whether it's an IT one or a paper-based one, you should have somewhere, I used to have it in a little notebook. It's like your golden moments notebook. And when something nice happens to you in your class, you write it down in the notebook as soon as you can. Because as teachers, we tend to be quite self-critical and we tend to worry more about the nasty moments than we do remember the nice moments. So when you have a nasty moment, you need something to look back at and remember, oh, there are nice times as well. So have your golden moments either on a spreadsheet or in your notebook, but have it so you can look back at it when you're not feeling so great.
Yeah, I thank you so much for that, Stephen. I actually have like the section over here, so I haven't labeled it yet, but I like to do that as well. And I also have something that I learned from my teacher of English in Spain, and it's whenever students say some like funny things, and you know, I start like writing them down. So I write them down secretly after the lesson, and then I write them down in here. And when you've got those really difficult days, just opening your planner and seeing those, you know, jokes or those things, it kind of like reminds you of why you chose this career and why you love teaching so much. So it's really encouraging. Okay, so next thing is putting key dates or events in your planner. So parents' evenings, school events and holidays, or staff training days. The way I like to do it, because it could change, the CPD schedule could change or anything. As I start the year in September, I write every single thing on the school calendar, from the school calendar on my planner up to October half term. And then during the October half term holidays or the last days of school, then I write down until Christmas. So I've got everything written down and I know 100% sure that I'm not going to forget anything. And another piece of advice is, because this planner is going to become sort of like your Bible, sorry for the religious reference, but that's going to be with you at all times. I think it would be really interesting whenever you get an email and that says, okay, we've changed this, change it automatically on your planner. So if you've got a date or you need to add something, just change it straight away. Don't be like, oh, I'll change it later. No, if you got your email in front of you, it just takes 5 seconds to write it down on your planner so that you don't forget afterwards. And then we've got organizing your teaching file according to your school policy if relevant. I know some schools may not have decided not to use them. In my school, we do have a teaching file, and even though we are given binders.
There you are.
Sorry, did you lose me?
We lost the video, but you're back now.
Okay, did you hear this piece of information?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Okay, and the teaching file, did you hear what I said?
Yes, we heard you. We just lost your video.
Oh, okay,
right.
sorry.
Okay,
yeah. Okay, lovely, great. So instead of using a binder, I find that they break quite easily and we have like quite a lot of information. I also find that Polly Pocket's really easy to break all the time. I'm a mess with that. So because I like to have everything organized and neat, I have one of these ones that come with a ring, and then with elastic band, when you open it, you've got everything you need on the inside. So things that you could include are, for example, your timetable, your duty days, on-call times, if you've got one in your school, school policies and calendar, SEN register. Very important. I don't know for safeguarding reasons if your school will require you to have that or not. Schemes of work, and something I want to, lessons of observations, appraisal information, CPD courses, but something really, really useful is individual class information. So I know most people track that online or in an electronic file or an Excel spreadsheet, but I like to do that manually because you can just take notes all the time. You may be that, you know, a student just pops in as you're eating your lunch and they say something to you or they give you a piece of homework and then you forget to put it on the computer. So I like to track everything on paper. And then I also put grades and vocab test results. I put them on an Excel spreadsheet, but it does take a little bit of time, I have to say, but it's gonna help you absolutely massively, and that's gonna inform your grades, and that's gonna inform, you know, your when you put the underpinning performance data on the system, that's gonna be very, very objective. Especially when it comes to attitude, for example, or participation, homework. So I track students' attendance, even though we've got our school system, because it could be as well that sometimes the student is in learning support and they appear as being in school, but then you know that they were not in class. So what I did on my previous years is it was a mistake I think I used to make, and it was last year. I still did it last year. Whenever a student was absent, I would stick in the sheets for them in the books, and then I realized on the past year that was not sustainable. I just couldn't. You know, I would go at the end of the day on the list, just find out who was absent, and then stick things for them. And I said, no, that's not good. I'll show you in a minute the way I work with the trace, but basically I would put the copy. I would make however amount of copies, and then however many amount of copies, and then I will leave them there. And then when students are absent, I know that I need to give it to them. So that's, for example, a way of how tracking the attendance helps me. In terms of attitude, it's exactly the same. Homework, absolutely, it's a must for me. So absolutely important. And then vocab test results. When I check their books, I also write down how their books look or where they need to be working on. So the feedback is not only for the students, but it's also for me to see what I need to plan on the next session. So maybe after I check all of the books, we spend 10 minutes working on common mistakes or things that I've seen that are not very, very clear. And then when I get the books again, because I've got that on my spreadsheet, on paper, then I can see, is the student making progress or not? Do I need to work on that again? So it could be, some people may think it's a little bit OCD, but I just think it's absolutely, it's vital to keep yourself organized. You don't have to do that, but it has helped my teaching and me being very objective. Because, sometimes we play with the expectation factor. So it does give you a very accurate piece of information. So yeah, that is how the teaching file looks in case you didn't see it. And I'm gonna stop here now in case you've got any questions on the chat about the first, as I said, that was half of the presentation. That was a big section.
There was a bit of discussion earlier on about handling materials in the classroom when you were talking about picking up pieces of paper and so on. All to do with the current context, obviously, where we're not supposed to have children sharing resources, or we have to clean them in between, leave them a long time. And and Glenys made a comment about things being different in different schools. Are you still there, Glenys? Would you like to say something about that?
Yes, I am here.
Hi, Glenys.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I've just been having lots of conversations so I work at St Mary's University in the on the PGCE course. And so I've been having lots of conversations with our partner schools and hearing very much that there are very different things happening in different schools. So just really to say, check out what's happening in your school and don't make any assumptions, I think, about what you can and can't do at the moment. Yeah, so
I think everyone's learning at the moment, or trying to think ahead of themselves and coming up with different solutions. Has anyone got another question that they can put to anyone? Lisa, do you want to say something about your spreadsheet just briefly?
I'll mute myself and start my video. Do you want me to share the screen and show it to you? Because it's quite odd, my spreadsheet. I mean, I know there are people who think is it possible to do that, or is that a complete pain?
Veronica, is that all right?
Is it? Can I share? I don't know.
I don't know how we'll do that. We'll need.
I'll stop sharing. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Here we go. So let me go to my Excel. Open music. Hold on. Oh, my Excel's now just opening. Hold on a second. Sorry, I should have had. I was just sending it to people, so I'd closed it. Sorry. Does anybody else want to keep talking while I? Excel? Oh, here we go. It's all right. It's opened. Right. Where's my Excel? Right. Don't worry if this scares you. Some of my colleagues look at this and think, I've come from a journalist broadcast background, so I can't cope with paper at all. So for each half term, I have a sheet. Is everybody seeing this okay?
Yes, it's fine, thank you.
Yeah, okay, so term 1. So for example, we're going back next Wednesday. I've got 3 inset days, 2 year 13 tutor group days, and then we kick off.
Yes.
So I can see everything for the next half term that I'm doing. So because what I can't cope with, I know what Veronica's saying about a week planner, but I can't cope with a week view. I need to know what I'm doing, and this allows me to medium term plan for the whole half term. So what I'll then do is, for example, when I finish that 11D lesson, I'll add a note. I'll just put a new note in here and say wherever we got up to etc.
Yeah.
And then I'll know exactly where that is. And then you can put stuff like bus duty, because I'm always forgetting when I'm supposed to be doing bus duty. And then I have this up all of the time.
Yes.
During my lesson. So some people have already emailed me about it, but yeah, it's the only way I can visualize it. It all has to be color coded because I'm.
And you get your colours from the same shop as Veronica gets her coloured pencils?
I am also a stationery obsessive, and I find colour coding. And for example, here this year I'm sharing a lesson, so I've got a note here that when I'm teaching 10C, that Val is teaching one of my other lessons, and yeah, it just allows me to visualize. Otherwise, I found I was just in a complete state of panic. Otherwise.
Well, thank you for showing us that. That looks, that's amazing.
I'll stop share. So anyway, I'm emailing it to people as they're asking for it. So, here we go. Hand share.
So for those people who are ALL members, by the way, your Languages Today that will be appearing at the end of September has an article from Lisa about her NQT year and how that went, partly in school and partly in lockdown. So you can look forward to that. Veronica, back to you.
Yep. There we go. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah, so before I continue, I wanted to tell you, because I usually use PowerPoint and I don't like using too many animations because my students get too distracted. But during lockdown, I did a CPD on PowerPoint and like advanced PowerPoint, and they mentioned one of the most useful things was Slides Carnival. I've just put it on the chat. So I've downloaded the template from there. So you can download loads of templates from Slides Carnival for free. You don't need to download an app or anything. So you just type that on Google, then you can find loads of different templates. So I thought, you know, for teachers, because we love our stationery, colorful stuff, it may be a bit useful maybe. Okay, so for the second section, it's divided into 5 subsections. So this is about your first lessons with each class, so the first lesson with each class. And it could be that depending on your school, it could be that they already have the books and they want you to start straight away with the teaching. So if that's the case, you just need to follow what your head of faculty says. In my case, we've got a little bit more freedom. So I'm going to explain to you what I like to do on my first lesson with each class and my second lesson with each class. So the take-home message is expect things to be unpredictable. Have a plan A, B, and even Z if necessary, and some flexible backup activities to drop in if necessary, because they will always come in useful. Things that I've encountered throughout my career, not very long, but all the time, means I don't have a pen. As I said, have your pens ready there. They know, students know if they don't have a pen. It is a part of the equipment required in my school, so they must have a pen. but somehow my students manage to pop their pens in their mouth all the time. You know, after almost 30 years or being or 20 something years, I've never popped a pen in my mouth, but my students manage to do it all the time. So expect that. Have some tissues in your drawer as well for that, because, and some wipes. Make sure that they're not allergic, because they will definitely pop in a couple of pens before October half term. Then it may be that we don't have enough notebooks. The glue sticks may not have arrived on time, or the stickers may not have been printed out. So, you know, expect the unpredictable. And obviously, watch out for the new normality. So this is something that is completely, you know, unexpected for all of us. Second thing is that first impressions are very important. Two things that I always do on my first lesson is I have my name written on the board, and I don't have the whiteboard on or anything to try to avoid distractions. I also have my name on the board, first because I'm Spanish, so my students struggle to spell my name. And second, because it's also a way of introducing the Spanish culture and about the two surnames. And I've encountered that some of my students in year 7 may have done Spanish before, some of them may have not. So when you ask, you know, why, so at the end, I always leave a round of questions, and I always get asked, why do you have two surnames? So it's a way for me to introduce Spanish culture and, you know, the difference between Spanish and English culture. So that's very exciting. And also to tell them, you spell my surname with a Z. So yeah, also take the register. And for me, it works really well, as I said, being a non-native speaker, to write down the pronunciation of students' names. I can assure you that sometimes I've got, out of 30 students, I've got at least 14 names that I've never seen before. So I assume as my career goes, I would, you know, get used to the pronunciation. So, but yeah, it's, you know, just write it down on your sheet so that next time, because students get pretty offended when you pronounce their names wrong. I don't know why, but they do. Also, like, you know, make sure that students, you've got your sitting plan, or if you don't have a list, just write it on the sitting plan or whatever it is that you find it useful to remember. Have clear classroom expectations. So I think behavior and classroom management starts with a meet and greet at the door. My students know that they need to line up in complete silence, and I've managed, after repetition and repetition, and even if you need to take your students out of the class for a minute because they don't know how to behave, you always make sure that you meet and greet them at the door if possible with the new normality, because you can't imagine. I didn't need to do that in my previous school, but I get quite lively lessons in my new school with bottom sets especially, and they just come in from PE or from whatever subject they come in, super lively, and then the moment they start coming in the classroom, they know that they need to be, you know, Spanish mentality. So I start by speaking to them in Spanish, asking them, oh, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? How are you? The answer, they've got the planners on their hands and their pencil cases on their hands. And as they come in, I also have student rota to hand out books so that it reduces. I've got an eyesight problem and I cannot carry weight. So I'm not responsible for handing out my students' books. They cannot just, you know, come in like ants and just get their books and then start throwing books around. No, so I've got a rota of 4 students, and it changes every other week. So those 4 students know that for those 2 weeks, they need to be the first ones arriving to the lesson, and they need to hand out the books. They know, because of the sitting plan, everybody knows where everybody's sitting. So they would just hand out the books. As soon as they come in, they've got their routine. On the first day, I explained to them, it doesn't take too long, just meet and greet at the door. They come in, you show them where they are sitting. I display, so I've got my sitting plans on my teaching file like that at the door, and it's okay, this is where you sit here, you sit there. Obviously, it may not be possible in your school, it may not be relevant, but at some point in your career, I assume you may want to, you know, have it like that, like a sitting plan on there. We use a Frog for our sitting plans, and also I've got the sitting plan on the first day on the board so that they know in case. And what I've done as well, then if you use a bit of alcoholic solution, you can just get rid of that. You can ask the cleaners for some solution for the tables. I number my tables so that they know that which number they need to sit on. And after meeting and greeting, they're all in the classroom. I don't have my whiteboard on at all. They just see me and my name on the board. And I go through the school behavior and expectations policy in general, and my classroom rules in particular. It could be that you want to negotiate your rules, or it could be that your rules are pretty simple. My 2 rules are, being nice to each other, like being polite and don't be disrespectful. And also in terms of homework, I'll explain to you one of my rules as well. Be firm and consistent but fair, and always follow through on what you say. So regarding the being firm and consistent but fair, I have like an anecdote, something that happened to me this year. It was one of the students who always brings their homework, but that day they hadn't completed it for whatever reason. And I'll explain the homework policy in a minute. And she spent like the whole lesson crying, and I felt absolutely horrible. I felt like I was about to cry myself, because she it was at the beginning of the year, but you could tell she was gonna be the type of student who always does the homework. But she didn't. So I had to give her, like, in my school, we work with a planner comment system, which is sort of like type of detention type thing. So I did have to, even though I didn't, it just broke my heart. I can't cancel that. I can't cancel that detention because she didn't bring the homework. I have to say, until lockdown, she always brought her homework. She never forgot it again. So obviously, if you get a parental note, or sometimes what I do with students that, who are like, that there are cases, imagine the student lives with their parents, or the parents are divorced and they left it at their mom's, so it's a bit awkward. Obviously, you can make exceptions there, but when to make an exception. It's up to your criteria. You've got common sense. And what I always do is I say, okay, fine, I will ring your parents then. So some of them say, oh, okay, miss, but I forgot my homework at home. And I say, okay, fine, I'll ring your parents. By the end of the lesson, if they haven't done their homework, they will tell you. Before they leave, you say, oh, remember, I'm going to ring your parents today. And then, oh, miss, don't bother, I was just lying. So, okay, fine, give me your planner. There you go. So that's linked to, as I said, always follow through on what you say. My students know that if I tell them I'm going to ring their parents, I'm going to ring their parents. And on my menu thingy, I write down, okay, I'm going to ring your parents. Whilst the others are working, I'm going to write it down here, ring whomever's parents. So I've got it written down. If you don't have time on the day, or you forget, then on the day after you say, look, oh, miss, you didn't ring my parents. Yes, I had a meeting, or I forgot, or whatever, but I've got it. I'll ring them today. And do ring them. Parents, I found out that in terms of controlling and managing behavior, ringing parents works absolutely brilliant with some students. And I don't always just ring for negative, but also for praise and positive. So if I've got a student who never brings their homework and I need to ring their parents, then when I see the change on the student and they're starting to do work, then I'll ring again. And parents do feel like very proud. Especially with difficult parents, sometimes don't want to hear, so, hey, is Miss Gonzalez ringing from blah, blah. And, oh, sorry, I'm busy. And then when you say, actually, it was just to say that your son brought his homework today, and then they engage with you, it's all a question of being positive and being honest and being approachable, both to students and parents as well. So my weekly expectation, as I said, is homework. And as I say to them, I will always, except for during the holidays, ask you to do a piece of homework, to complete a piece of homework for the week after. So as soon as they see me, oh, miss, what do you mean? Oh, come on, it's the first lesson. My first piece of homework for them, which is literally due the week after, is to create a name tag similar to the ones that I'm going to show them, that I show them in class. And they can find examples or, more like pictures on the virtual learning environment, which is what we use. And the deadline is always like a week. So for me, that piece of homework is extremely important. As I said, I've got really bad memory. And for me, it's like, oh, yes, now they're not going to notice that I don't know their names, because it takes me weeks to remember the names, like weeks. I don't know if it's a question of just my brain or if it's not being a native speaker, but it definitely takes me weeks. So what I ask them to do is some of them just really love it because they've got the weekend to go shopping. If they like to go to Poundland or any shops, they just get their things and they like creating that. And there are some people like Lucas keep it pretty basic. I always tell them, as long as I can see it, that's fine. So it's not an assessed piece of homework. It's more like so that they get into their routine and for me to learn their name. So there is nothing confidential in there. It's just my surname underneath. So my weekly expectation with homework. So we've got our school policies, but then as a teacher, you need to have your own policies in terms of, for example, homework. So my students know that I ask them to do one piece of homework per week, except for during the holidays in general. So the homework is set weekly. It is differentiated. They always have 1 week to complete it. So imagine you've got 3 lessons with those students, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So on Monday, I would tell them, okay, this is your piece of homework. Then I will remind them on Wednesday, and then I will remind them on Friday, in case you've got a student absent, for example, or they're just not paying attention. I make sure that I give them a couple of minutes and I say, okay, now write it down on your planner. And the thing that they need to write down in the planner is like quite brief. It's just a line. So 20 keywords for Spanish or something like that. So they don't like write 5 lines. So as I said, late homeworks and the students know are only accepted under reasonable circumstances. You'll be surprised by following these, how students, even though they know they've got a detention, how because they know it's so important for me, because I sometimes introduce vocabulary on the homework that then I want to use in the classroom. So it's, as a preparation or just a writing task, they know that they need to hand it in. And some of them have done their detentions and then give it to me like the day after and say, Miss, I know I've got my detention. I don't expect that. And I'm telling you, this is not like the super good students. This is the ones that are always in detention. And they're like, okay, but Miss, here's the homework. And sometimes they just throw it like, here's my homework, like a bit shy. But I do appreciate that because I think homeworks are extremely important if they are like properly targeted. And a very important thing to remember is to have visual reminders. So I always have my Bitmoji, hola amigo, hello my friend. So homework on the board. So I have my starter activity, then I've got the lesson objectives, and then I've got the homework, because they have already, they're already on their, everybody has got their planners, everybody has got their books. So we're about to start the lesson and they know that. And as I said, it's
Veronica,
good. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt, we're going to be running out of time.
Yep, thank you. So, and finally, just use very simple and unambiguous instructions. So ask somebody to repeat them or paraphrase them. And get to know your students. So on the first lesson, I always use a student interest survey. So they always ask me, I always ask them things like types of music that they like, and then I use that on my lessons. Icebreaker activities such as the spider web. You've got a link on here with different activities. So I'll be happy to explain that after we finish in case anybody needs to go. And let students get to know you a bit more. So some people use the 2 truths and a lie. I like to use a 1 question per group where they can just ask you anything and try to use a target language as much as possible. So is it okay, Stephen, if I just continue because these 2 sections are going to be pretty fast?
Well, I think we ought to say that if anyone does need to go because it's the time we were going to be finishing, then we quite understand that they need to go. And thank you very much for joining in. But I'm sure there will be people who would like to hang on for a little bit longer, if that's okay with Helen. Helen is our mistress of the event, really.
Oh, am I? No, I think that's absolutely fine, because I know that we talked, the introduction that we gave was quite long as well. So in fact, you had 10 minutes taken off there, but it's just as Stephen says, if you need to go, that's fine. And it's great to see that, as well as you giving us these lovely ideas, Veronica, just to say, great to see people putting ideas there, because we're going to be keeping a record of that chat. So keep that going, everybody, please. Thank you.
And there's lots of people saying they're happy to stay, so that's fine.
Thank you. I've got, I timed myself yesterday because this is the first time I speak in English to that many people. And I was very nervous. So I practiced yesterday. So it's going to take me 9 minutes. So 6 minutes section 3 and 3 minutes section 4. So under 10 minutes, I hope. Okay, so second day of lessons, just keep writing your questions if you've got any questions or suggestions, and we can discuss them afterwards. So for the second day of lessons with each class, so you've already introduced yourself, you've built that, you know, warm environment. The students, in my case, they can sense that I'm very approachable. I try to use as much Spanish as possible, link it to culture, but I don't ask them to write. And they do appreciate that a lot. They do not like the homework, but then when you tell them, oh, it's just a name tag, they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. So yeah, so three subsections. First of all, meet and greet at the door. Then they come in, you hand out books and equipment according to what is allowed during the new normality and expected in your school. So before I actually give them the books, I've got them in piles. On my right hand side, I've got the spare equipment. On my left hand side, I'll show you what I've got. But I also put the books in there. So before I do anything, I model that. I show them what they need to do. So you first of all need to write the name, and I put it on the board. Then I initiate the routine of, probably not allowed this at the beginning of the year, of take one and pass the others. I found it really messy, time consuming, and not very useful for me to just give one sheet to each student, because it also builds that teamwork and responsible for each other's learning. So I give the sheets to the first person on the row, and then they take one and then they pass the other, and then first person on this row, and so on. Try, very important, big mistake I made last year, try to provide one sheet at a time and circulate around the classroom for support if required. Some students, you'll be surprised, they don't know how to stick the typical stickers that we put at the front of the books. They cannot peel it off somehow, so you need to be helping them. Some students struggle with perfectionism, and they don't want, if they make a mistake, they don't want to continue with the book and they need a new one. So you need to show them to be independent, but equally show them that from that simple thing of, okay, that's fine, I'll stick it for you today, you'll stick the next one. Then you're building that relationship with them. Then you create your routine. So I follow a traffic light working routine for everything. So for time management, for differentiation, and for students to show me how confident they are with their learning. I also have a system of hands up in general when finished. So when I'm teaching, I like them to participate, to just give me an answer. Then I divide them. We can talk about that on another webinar, about how I organize questioning. But whenever they finish sticking something or complete a task, hands up. I don't want absolutely anybody talking. So here are my instructions for lesson 2, and they are on the board displayed. Step 1, stick in your sheet and help your partner if they need support. Step 2, write page numbers 1 to 40 on the top right or top left corner of each page, front and back, because it helps me as well, the page numbers. When I give them feedback, I say, okay, this is very good, what you did on page 20, and they can refer back to that. So that's also, it is to keep them quiet, but also to, when I give them feedback, it's very useful. And step 3, learn 10 to 15 keywords from the vocab list at the back of your book. They know that whenever they finish a task or they do something, they have that vocab list at the end of at the back of those books to have a look at them. And I don't want anybody doing nothing. I always have like the challenge, and then I've got the super challenge, and support and extra support. But you know, sometimes you do have those minutes where somebody's asking you a question, so you do ask them, and they work brilliantly, those vocab lists. So plan B, imagine you get to your second lesson. As I've heard people like having that problem, that books do not arrive on the first, not even on the second week. Have some A5 line paper until you get the books. So I use the lid for the blank papers, and then I put the different year groups. And then for each year group, if you've got 3 classes of the same year group, I just fold a piece of A5 paper in half, and then I just put year 9 SP3, right? My bottom set. And then I've got it on the tray. You know, that is extremely useful because you'll be able to just put their photocopies that you want to hand out. And I just find it as a very way of keeping things neat and organized. And finally, on that second lesson, establish and follow your normal classroom routine. So 3 steps: meet and greet at the door, have your equipment ready, and then the books would be handing out from the next lesson based on that student rota that I explained. Second, write the date and title, and don't leave any gaps on your books because they know that I hate them. Just line and then date and title. It just looks as if they haven't done the work, they haven't completed it. And also, like, you know, you can encounter that some students in November, they may not have a book because they've left massive gaps. So that helps as well. Like the page numbers do help a lot. And step 3, they know as soon as they come in, sit down, open the books, date and title, no gaps, and then start their activity differentiated on the board. So that would be for section 3. And I'm going to move on to section 4 now, which is a very quick beginner's recipe for behavior management. There is a lot of literature. There is absolutely brilliant workshops and CPDs online that you can do, but this is like my top 7, like the rainbow ingredients for your NQT year. Be firm, fair, and consistent. Stick to the relevant behavior policy. Always, always, always follow through. Know your students, and that goes from knowing their names, which is an extremely powerful tool at the beginning when they don't expect you to know the names, and sometimes they forget they've got their name tags on top of the desk. So always know your students, but also know their interests, you know, so that you can model and you can prepare your lessons ahead. So I remember a student told me on the initial survey she likes playing the violin and her favorite musician was whomever. So I included that on my lesson about culture, like about music. So, and the students love it. Then start on a clean slate every day. That is very important. It does feel at the beginning as if students are attacking you when they are like insulting you or they are shouting at you. Just, you know, bear in mind that they are not targeting that behavior to you as a person 90% of the cases. Sometimes it is personal, but in general is, you know, you as a teacher figure, not you as Veronica. So that is very important. And then on the next day, just remember, like in my case, I'm very tiny. You're probably quite young when you start, you know, so you may, you know, be like, oh my God, this student. Just try to start on a clean slate every day because you are a role model for them. You have to be professional, and you don't want that, you know, sense of favoritism or sense of, oh, the teacher doesn't like me. They're gonna say that probably at some point, but, you know, try to start on a clean slate every day. Track everything because it's gonna help you to keep objective, you know, when you have to input data. It has proven to be absolutely vital during this lockdown when we have had to predict grades. We don't know what's going to happen, hopefully not, but track everything and show students that you care. You're here in this school, in this career, because you probably like helping people, because you love languages, or, you know, just show that on a daily basis. So the method, step 1 is mix all ingredients together repeatedly for the next 40 years or less years for some of us. Second, be open-minded and stay humble throughout the entire process. So if you don't know something, ask, okay? There is no harm on asking. And step 3, never lose your enthusiasm and passion for teaching and learning your language. I am pretty sure, I always say my motto in life is be the change that you wish to see in the world. It is, I would say, one of the most rewarding jobs in the world, being a teacher. It is very frustrating at times, but honestly, you're gonna feel like a carousel of emotions when you start. One day it could be that you had a horrible period, but then you get a student who is like, oh, miss, and then they say a word in Spanish, or they tell you, oh, we went to a restaurant. So it is extremely, extremely rewarding, and it's a beautiful career, absolutely beautiful. So I've got the top 3 further reading suggestions. I know there's a lot of literature there, and I'm pretty sure you've got lots of books to read. So I've got 3 websites. So these take like literally 2 minutes to read. being prepared for when September comes for NQTs, how to protect your well-being, and I've taken this one for the all languages page, advice and guidance for language teachers. So thank you so much for listening to me. Sorry if I went a little bit over the time, and if maybe I said something that you may not consider relevant, but at some point in your career, you may be able to help somebody. If you've got any questions, just feel free to either email me, put them on the chat now, or just, if you're stuck with anything, just say, okay, Veronica, can we please do a Zoom, or I need help with these, or I would just bring anything to Stephen and Helen in case they can provide further guidance for you. But thank you so much for being with me this evening.
Thank you. A lot of thank yous coming up in the chat now. People have had a lovely evening, I think, enjoying listening to you, Veronica, and seeing each other's ideas. And that's really the main point, as I said at the beginning of the evening, of us being together to share those things and talk about them, because we all have different ideas, but we all have one common belief that languages is important, or languages are important, and that language learning is very important for our learners, because they learn so much else at the same time as they're learning the language. So thank you once again. You can see on the screen in the middle there, you can see Jennifer, who's joined us from somewhere in the United States, I imagine, which is very nice to see as well. If anyone else wants to turn on their camera and wave at Veronica to say thank you or anything like that, you're very welcome to do so.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, honestly.
And can I say, if people do open up their webcam, I'd love to take a picture of people who are here as well. We've got 3 pages worth, so I don't know how many of you are going to be brave enough, but as you're talking, Stephen, I'll take some photos if that's okay.
Okay, I wasn't going to say anything else.
Oh, weren't you?
Put the pressure on me, that's all right.
Well, I'll say I totally agree with Veronica that it's a brilliant job. I mean, I really think it's the best career change. It's the best job I've ever done in 20 years of different careers, so I'm loving it. That's
great. Well, and from my point of view, as someone who's at the other end of a career from being an NQT, I still meet people who I used to teach. I live in a small town, so we still see each other, and they always remember. The strange thing about people is when they're teenagers, you don't particularly get on well sometimes, or you think you're not getting on well, but later on they just have rosy spectacles. Everything seems to be nice. They just say, oh, do you remember when we went on a study visit or something like that? Or do you remember when you took us to the theatre? They very rarely remember, do you remember the lesson when you taught us the imperfect tense? But they do remember those sort of more human things outside that as well. So being a language teacher is a very human activity, because it's all about interaction and other people as much as about the content of what we're teaching, I think.
Yeah, they're very forgiving, I think. I've been surprised how forgiving teenagers are. They're much easier than adults.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I remember, like, I had a really, I came home crying every day. Honestly, I'm very sensitive, but it was just, I couldn't cope. I didn't know what to do. And I'm extremely motivated. I've been wanting to be a teacher since I was little. And the students, honestly, oh my God, I don't know what was wrong with me or with them. But then they see you the year after and they are like, hi, Miss. Hello. Hi, Miss González. Hola, ¿qué tal? And I'm like, oh my God, you didn't talk to me last year for a year. And now you just hi to me. And then you see them in parents' evening and you don't teach them anymore. They don't do Spanish and they just come to see you. Hi, Miss, this is my mom. And so it's like, honestly, it's so rewarding. It's as Stephen says, they're going to remember you not for just, and I always tell them, you are there for some of them. You are going to be the closest it gets as a positive role model, unfortunately. And just bear in mind that, even though it's, as I said, it's very, very emotional, you need to be there for them. They need to know that they're in a safe environment, that you're there to support them. Just be natural, just be yourself. If you don't like talking about your life, just don't say anything, as long as you're professional. But as Stephen said, students are going to remember you for tiny things. I remember I took my students for a workshop to do Spanish, like cakes and foods, like we did a Spanish tapas evening. So some of them do remember that. I remember one time it was a bit random, but sometimes you throw some anecdotes and I show them how to differentiate between fresh fish and the student emailed me like 2 years afterwards, an A-level student. She said, Miss, you know what? I went to this fish market in Spain, and I could tell the fish was pretty fresh because of the eye of the fish. So completely random that you don't even remember, but they do remember. And especially those students that say, I have had during my teacher training, it was horrible. I was just crying all the time because the things that you see, oh my God. And then they become their normality, but bless them. And when they don't want to study, I remember I had a student who was pregnant at the age of 14. So it was really difficult year for me, my teacher training, emotionally speaking. But then when you see that they continue and they say to you, like, this summer I found one of the students like with a mask and stuff on the streets of Spain, and they said, well, in Spain they call it by your first name. They say, Veronica, I wanted to say thank you so much for that, because it was thanks to you that I managed to get my, like the GCSE, which in Spain many people don't get. So they finish without a qualification. So for you, knowing that, the tiny little impact that you think you're having, and then changing somebody's career for that, just encouraging them to continue. And then you see that now, 5 years after, they're starting, like, they've done at nighttime, they've done their A-levels, and now they're going to university because they cannot find a job. And these were people who were absentees from school. So, this is an extremely rewarding job, and you're gonna learn so much from them. Even, I would say, even more than probably they learn from you. You're gonna learn so much from them on a daily basis.
Thank you. David is just below me on my screen. David, did you want to say anything? David did a webinar for NQTs back before the summer, as did I. So I don't know if you have anything to add, David?
I think Veronica did such a good job that there's not too much to add from my end. Just going back to the thing about routines, I posted a little link to 6 alternative ideas. I wrote a little blog post. And so there are a couple of things about, getting students to decorate their book, because something we invest our time in, we're more likely to show a bit of ownership over. So a bit like the name tags, something I always do in the first lesson is establish a slow chat as well. So that's where the margins of the exercise book is a space for students to write to you in the target language, so that you've got, some students might be copying an objective down whilst your high flyers are sitting there twiddling their thumbs, and they use that time to ask you questions. And then when you're marking as well, you can respond to that. Numbering the page numbers, there's an easy first lesson. Your homework is to write the pages on your exercise book in the target language and design a contents page. That's 0 kind of prep for you, and is set your phone in the target language. I like 0 preparation homeworks, and they're quite good ones, those. And the main thing I'd say is just in terms of behavior and things, my golden rule is mutual respect, and I'd include in that a kind of culture of error. And so the one thing that I don't tolerate is sniggering or laughing at someone else giving it a go. I think kind of trying to establish that culture of error, and that it's a common endeavor. We're in this together, and we're supportive of one another. It's the one thing that I'm really quite authoritarian on from the get-go, and setting that precedent early, I think, is quite important in my book. But yeah, thanks I've taken lots of tips from Veronica as well, and from the chat as well.
Great. Anyone else wanted to be asking anything, saying anything, or?
Judith, have you got anything to, Judith there from Goldsmiths, you got anything to add?
I think there's also amazing, but I think establishing sort of clear rules, and what David said, this idea that mistakes, are part of learning, and that we're all learning together. And also, I think Veronica, as she mentioned, is sharing a little bit about what you're passionate about with the pupils, and then having them share what they really love, and that establishes also a way to communicate with the pupils. If you can then say, oh, what about this football match the other night, and so on. So that then establishes also a culture of trust and of respect for each other, but also of interest. And I think that's really important. But yeah, what a great webinar. Loads and loads of ideas. Really great. I think also for those who couldn't join tonight, I think it will be an invaluable resource to add to the webinars that already have taken place for NQTs before the summer.
If you're brave enough, try some of Stephen's songs. It totally broke the ice with my year 9 group. I'd been quite authoritarian with them, and then about a term in, I did a version of one of Stephen's songs with them, and they were so gobsmacked when I was singing Kylie Minogue at them. So anything like that as well, you can break the ice and form those magic moments.
Yeah, I'm not going to sing to you now, though. Sorry.
But I think we ought to give a link to your songs, Stephen, when we put together a web page about this, because things that we've mentioned, I'm sure you could do the Kylie Minogue one for us, though. Is that the ooh? Is that the ooh?
Yeah, I agree.
No, that's the Spice Girls.
Oh gosh. Why I'm not popular.
All the regulars.
I've just put the link in again in the chat to the NQT page of the ALL website for anyone who wasn't around at the beginning. That's where you'll find lots of things that might be relevant to you. But of course, you can also explore the rest of the website, much of which is in the public area and free of access. If you want to go be a member, you obviously get to more content, and you get to things that you don't have access to in the public area as well. The other thing to say is that ALL exists all over the country. So Helen runs ALL in London. I run ALL in the Northeast, but there are branches and networks and primary groups all over the country. So you don't have to go to those. If you don't know of one nearby, you can find out from the website, from the ALL website, if you look for ALL local. And if there isn't one, then in due time, when you're settled in and you've got a bit of energy, you can always start one yourself. We do have NQTs and young teachers who run those around the country for other people to go to. Any more?
Well, just people are asking about the chat, which definitely we normally put on a web page. But I think if you click by the chat, can't you? I think everyone can.
Yeah, you can download
save it. You can save the chat. So if you want to just have it straight away before you, you don't have to wait then, because that's something where it's a setting. You can allow or disallow that. And I'm sorry, someone said to me that they couldn't get in touch with people privately, which I think is a setting. And just to say, I did not deliberately turn that setting off. So I don't know why that's happened. Oh, it's the wind.
Yeah.
So, well, unless anybody else.
Sorry, can you just say one thing, Helen, before we go? It's also like I am a teacher of English, and in my current school, unfortunately, I don't teach French, I just teach Spanish. So I do sense that after, like, this is going to be my 3rd year not teaching French. As an NQT, you may feel that you are just teaching one of the languages and you're losing the other. I've got loads of books, but I have to be honest, when I've arrived home, and I was a nerd as a student, but when I arrive home after a really difficult day, I do not feel like getting a book really and start practicing. So I got this from Blackwell's in Newcastle, and these are like to practice French vocab. They are like flashcards. And my boyfriend and I, he's a language teacher as well, we like playing games like memory games and different card games. And it does help you, like, just, for 5 minutes over the weekend, or, after, a long day, apart from Duolingo, you can always like use them. So that's the big pack, the vocab. And then the small pack is the grammar. So it's got this is for French because I need to practice my French. But, always keep up with your language. Do not feel that because you're not teaching the language. Of course, I think this is like going to the gym. If you don't work out, the language is gonna, like, it is there, but it's gonna feel like a little bit rusty. So keep working on something that you find easy. So just, something like this is absolutely brilliant to keep working on your grammar endings or your vocab. So just keep working on that.
And don't be ashamed about it either, because I only started my Spanish 2 years ago, and the kids loved the fact that I did my GCSE Spanish and my A-level Spanish, and I'm honest with them about that. And I still have Spanish lessons with our teaching assistant. It doesn't, the fact, be honest with them that you're not, my French, I've spoken French since I was 3 years old, but my Spanish isn't as good as my French. And I'm just honest with them about that you can pick up languages, because I think that's a really positive message, that you can pick up languages at any time in your life.
Yeah.
Veronica, there's a question from Marion, who's in the audience, who's a French native speaker, who's learnt Spanish and has been asked to teach only Spanish. Have you got any advice for her?
Any advice for her? Well, I think the good thing about Spanish is that it's a very transparent language. So in terms of speaking it, as long as you know there is, you know, a couple of sounds that are, you know, different, that I think that's basically it. Like, you know, learning it, and if she needs any help, she can contact me and we can do some like a quick Spanish session, or, you know, before. The good thing is, because you need to like, I remember one of my colleagues, she's currently retired. On her last year, she's been asked to teach year 7 Spanish. So before the lesson, she would come to my room and be like, okay, pep talk, please give me the pronunciation for this, show me this, show me that. And then as you teach it, you practice it actually, so that because you're gonna repeat it so many times, it's actually gonna feel like you're mastering it. And one thing I do when it's a very difficult work, even as a native speaker, sometimes I need to think of the English in A level, for example. I use wordreference.com. And my students, because they only know about Google, and I say, okay, just type the word, let's do it together, and so I'm gonna put it on the chat. I assume everybody knows it, but wordreference.com is an online dictionary. So I tell them, okay, so when we don't know a word, where do we check it? And then we just do it in class, and then they don't realize that I don't know the word. So we just check it there. Don't do it all the time, but just a few times is fine.
Yeah.
So Marion was saying she's been learning Spanish for about 10 years. So I think she just needed a little bit of reassurance, really. And I think all the messages in the chat are very reassuring. People who are saying that so David is saying that he did his exams alongside his classes, basically. And also Lisa has only been doing her Spanish for a short time.
Yeah.
So I think it's about the confidence, really.
Yeah, it is. And I've seen loads and loads of people in that position. And I had a colleague last year who she did German and French, but she was asked to teach Spanish. And she actually ended up loving Spanish a lot more than her French. And she said, you know, I've enjoyed it so much and I've learned so much. The key is just don't be 100% honest with difficult groups as, oh my God, I have no clue. But be confident because you know that you know what you know more than them, that for sure, unless you've got a native speaker. So you know more than them.
I taught year 8 German. I don't speak German in my teacher training year. My family's Dutch, so I've got a fairly good grasp. But I just prepped the lesson in advance. I learned all the vocab in the lesson in advance. They didn't know that I don't speak German. I was honest with them and said, look, my accent's a bit dodgy and my vocab's not great because my family's Dutch. But they don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, sometimes they may ask you like random words. I remember with year 7, like animals, they were like challenging me because I love animals. So they were challenging me like, oh, how do you say this? Sometimes when you're doing a piece of writing, you just ask them, look, stick to the ones we've got. And if you want to know any, just let me know and then we'll discuss them tomorrow. And then you can prepare in advance, you know, if there is, because they do things with Google Translate and stuff. So do not feel at any point that you are like a fraud of a teacher or anything, because some people feel, oh, I'm a fraud. Like when I started teaching French, my degree is in English and I teach Spanish because I'm a teacher of Spanish. I did A-level French, but I didn't do French in my degree. So for me, when I studied French, I had a tutor and I was extremely insecure. I was asked to teach year 6 and 7. And, you know, you just pick it up. You just pick it up as you go. And as I said, if anybody needs any help with their Spanish, just, you know, email me and we can do like a Zoom, like obviously not as a formal lesson, because once school starts, then it's going to feel like you don't have the time. But
David
as you go, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. David has his hand up.
Yeah, just to say on that I see who's at Pilar talking, feeling nervous about teaching French. It'd be very worthwhile speaking to your department or senior leadership in the school and saying, look, can you provide me with CPD? I know a number of our schools have, as part of someone's annual kind of CPD plan, they've financed, for example, I did a Tuesday night Spanish course in the evening. I've always found it quite difficult to get myself motivated to do things on, you know, coming home after a day at school. But if I know that I've got a course at 7:30 on a Tuesday, and that was financed by the school, so it'd be well worthwhile if you're not feeling confident that could be an avenue to explore. And also just to say more generally that booking in activities, I think, is really important. I remember in my own NQT year, I was amazed at a colleague who would go and play football and go to the cinema, and I was kind of swimming a little bit with workload. But if you have something that's booked in the diary, be that restaurants or sport or cinema or whatever it may be, I'd really recommend that for well-being, because if you have it fixed, then you're much more inclined to go and partake in that and feel better as a result. Whereas if it's something you're going to do when you get home, the sofa and TV can be a lot more appealing.
And if I can just say, it's going back to what Pilar was saying and others about being unsure. Normally in your schools, there will be a textbook and there'll be audio that goes with it. And I would say, don't feel bad about just going through the textbook religiously, making sure that they always hear the audio from the native speakers first. And dare I say, also not getting a hang up about target language. If, you know, because I think that really, that's really difficult if it's not your language. And I think it's far more important to feel more confident going through the textbook than agonise about having to be speaking in the language. I don't know if other people agree with me or what you think, but
yeah.
Personally, I would not want to be uttering things which were inaccurate for the sake of looking as though I knew it.
Yeah.
And I think just to know also, you can tell loads of us have been in the same situation, because you don't employ people now to teach just one language, even though a lot of people will not necessarily have done two. So you employ them to be a language, well, first of all, a teacher, and then a languages teacher. And you've got the skills already for teaching languages. So use the book, use the audio.
The other point that Glenys made in the chat was that if you're teaching a language you're not so confident in, you have to think a lot harder about how you're going to teach it, how you're going to put that across. So sometimes your lessons can be more effective because you're having to think about it more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I don't make assumptions when I'm speaking Spanish, when I'm teaching Spanish, where I think I make too many assumptions when I teach French, because I actually have to break it down in Spanish. So sometimes I think I teach Spanish better. I don't know if my students agree.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've run over by a good half an hour, which is a good show, I think. It shows people have had things they wanted to talk about and ask about. I think we've done what we said we were going to do, getting people together, helping to boost their confidence and make a good start to the year. I'm sure you'll all have a lovely time. I hope you will. I hope the context of the pandemic and so on doesn't cause too many problems for things that you would like to do. I know that in lockdown, people were finding things very difficult because they couldn't experiment with some of the things they wanted to be trying while they had the support of their tutors and so on. So hopefully in your new post, you'll be able to find that time and to explore those things. Thank you very much to everyone for your contributions and for your...
Sorry, I think there is a last question, I think by Marion, asking about speaking like classroom language and advice for that. Can I just say very quickly what I've done for my French when I first started?
Yes.
Yeah, so Marion has just asked if there is like any advice, and what I did for my French was just get an A4 piece of paper and write down key language that I may want to use. And after using that over and over, it's just 10 keywords, like take your books out or write down the date and title. That's more than enough in some schools. So, you know, you just practice them on a daily basis, and then it just comes like automatized on your brain. So, you know, just write everything down and don't feel bad about making posters or about things that you want to remember as well for the classroom.
I agree.
Thank you. And we have a suggestion there, Helen, from Karen or Karine.
Yes, I like that idea. And in fact, one thing I was going to say was that I didn't get my act together, and I was hoping to make it that we could at least say, well, ALL London has already planned this event for NQTs, because we do. We always have one, don't we, David and Judith? And we discussed it at the last committee meeting, and I've just thought to myself, oh, I haven't arranged that. And I know that other regions as well regularly have events, but we will be having it online. So that's something where it doesn't have to be regional, does it? It could really be the fact that we've got all these people here who are interested. It may well be that we team up with other regions. And I think, Stephen, we might have discussed this. And, you know, the idea of having a regular time when people can just come have, and I like the way you put it, a lightly themed evening. Yeah, lovely idea. Thank you.
So if we plan one, we'll keep you in touch, because Helen's got your contact.
Yes, I've got everybody there.
Anyone got a suggestion for a first light theme?
Anyone can say anything or write anything for a theme.
Coping with planning. That's not a very light theme.
I think we should just show each other the stationery we got.
Big biro.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly can be. It can be people feeding back what has worked for them, perhaps top tips. Yes, David's just written that. Yeah, what's worked well for you?
And I think it's all for everybody. It's going to be not. We don't know what we're going back into in terms of our school's not told us yet what we're going back into in terms of like equipment and stuff. Because I think the school's holding off because the government's been so late with saying everything. Like at the moment, there's a TES thing saying we're going to have to wear masks. Nobody really knows. So I think schools are holding off giving specifics before they have to. So everybody's going to be in at the same. Like really experienced teachers are going to be in a completely new boat this year as well.
So true. Yeah.
So,
Great.
I think we're all panicking.
I mean, at the moment, I think that as far as experienced teachers are concerned, yes, we've been really building up more and more knowledge about things to be able to do online, which is a way around this whole business of that, you know, even when we're face to face, a way of being able to still carry on looking at work that people have done, marking it. It may be that's part of it, is seeing how are people able to monitor what children are doing given the circumstances. And there are a lot of people with a lot of really good ideas there. So
Well, I'm going to have to go because my poor husband's desperate to watch the latest instalment of this box set we're watching. So I'm going to have to go.
Is it on in the Louvre? Are you just going to go into the Louvre and watch it?
That's Place des Vosges there. That's near where I used to live in Paris. Yeah, in the good old days, many years ago. Veronica, lovely to meet you. Stephen, Helen, thanks so much. Dennis,
Thank you.
David, everybody. Bye-bye.
bye then.
Bye-bye.
Evening, everyone. Thanks again, Veronica.
Thank you.
Yes, Veronica, it was great. I want to get to a stationery shop quickly now.
Oh, there's someone asking about the recording, Helen.
Oh yes, well that's something where, I mean, if I put things all on the London site and I'll share that link, I can do that by tomorrow, and then eventually we'll have it nationally. I don't know whether Krista is here, but she will organise this page there. So I'll certainly keep in touch with the people, you know, via the email registration, if that's okay. So.
Great.
And Karen, I can see you now, who you made the idea about the lightly themed. I think you're going to be in charge of that. We'll put you as coordinator.
Lightly themed coordinator is a nice job.
A lightly themed coordinator, yes. Good idea. Where are you going to be, Karen, then? What's your position?
Myself, I'll be in Lewis, in Priory School in Lewis.
Nice.
All right. Okay. So have you got an idea as to what sort of things, or I suppose in a way it'll be when people start that they'll realise where they would like the advice and just to get together.
I've started planning and I have about 20 themes that I'd like to discuss, anything from phonics to retrieval to how to organise lessons, etc., how narrowly to plan them, how many weeks in advance to plan them, etc., etc. So plus behaviour, everything has been mentioned today. So
yes, and that's where we do have, if you like, regular webinars, which, I mean, this was particularly meant to be for people starting their NQ2 year, but there'll be things which raised here which really are just as relevant for people who are experienced.
Yeah, it's lovely to see everybody together in a way, you know. It's a bit different from Twitter or Facebook, and there's so many ideas, everybody, you know, sort of in the same place at the same time. Yeah.
Well, and that's something which I suppose we are, as ALL members, we're often people who are just drawn to that we like that as close to face as you can, really.
Yeah. It may be an idea that, you know, volunteers of us take 15 minutes and just do a quick presentation on a topic that's relevant to everybody. Yeah. And then we can take half an hour to drop in and out and discuss.
I think that's a really good idea. So I'll have your email, will I, on the list of registrations, or if you want to just...
You would have it under registration.
I'll do that. Okay. Right.
Good. Great.
Okay, well, lovely to see you all. And Veronica, that was great. I mean, the fact you are doing that, you say you were nervous in your second language. You don't have a problem.
Oh, it felt like a job interview. God, honestly, or my final, assessment at my degree or something. Honestly, but you just learn by doing. So,
Yeah.
I guess I will have to participate more if you allow me.
No, definitely, please do. No, it was lovely. And your enthusiasm, well, that was what you said right at the beginning. You wanted it all to be positive, and the way you ended it up, I mean, it was quite emotional. I thought it was lovely, the fact that it's the people, isn't it? It's the way you get on with children.
I am very emotional, for good and for bad, but it is.
Yeah, and that idea, I mean, certainly your thing about, well, all of the principles that you gave about starting with a clean slate, that's the thing I personally have had difficulty with sometimes when I'm dwelling on something overnight. Get there the next morning, and actually sometimes it's the kids who teach me the clean slate because they're fine with me.
Yeah.
Whatever happened before. Oh, have I stopped recording? I might be making all these confessions. Right, I'll stop the recording now. Yeah, there we go. And end the live stream. So in the end, there were people on the live stream at the beginning, but then they didn't add anything more. So goodbye to you.